some age, so we all need to congratulate Representative Epley, who's obtained the age of 52? 68. Oh, you're young compared to me. So, but Representative, congratulations for making the age of 68, and happy birthday. I know you wouldn't like for me to have ignored that, but I hope you have a good birthday. Okay. Well, I've set today for a few bill, and I'm going to start out with, if you'll open your files to House Bill 2408, authorizing the State Historical Society to convey certain real property to the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. For that, I will look to Representative Epley.
Boy, Mr. Chairman, you're fast for the birthday boy today, for such a mature chairman. But I would like to move that we, sir, that we move House Bill 2408 favorably for passage.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Representative Arnberger? I knew that. I was just thinking here. Discussion on that, and Chair has the first question. You got something back from the AG's office?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment on the bill now that if we could hand it out, I could explain, or be happy to let Matt explain. Connie has it.
Does Connie have the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jeannie, if you'd be so kind as to hand the amendment out. While she's handing it out, would you like to explain the amendment?
Yes, sir. This process has gone pretty smoothly throughout, except for the wording of reversion and how to word that. And I did speak with leadership and was directed to submit to the AG's office. Mr. Charles Mashirs in the AG's office reviewed this issue and came up with wording, and then worked with the Iowa tribe on the wording. And it is kind of stunning to me. It's such a short amendment, and I'm sure the legal folks here present can maybe chime in and help us all understand this. But there's a strike on line 9 without consideration, so it will be potentially with consideration. So it strikes on line 9 without consideration. And then the other strike is on line 25, and it's striking statutory warranty and inserting the word quit claim. And that wording, those wording changes make the state of Kansas, through the AG, as represented to the AG's office, and then the Iowa tribe, no pun intended, at peace over this process of conveyance of that property to the Iowa tribe. Sir.
Thank you. Matt, are you on the line?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Would you give us an overview of the amendment?
Sure. As Representative Epley described, so those are the two changes to the bill. Striking the without consideration allows for the tribe to give consideration in exchange for the property, which could be either monetary or in the form of promises or guarantees. And as Representative Epley indicated, any conveyance document has to be reviewed and approved by the Attorney General, so it allows for those parties to discuss matters that in terms of exchanging of a guarantee for the property. The change from statutory warranty deed to quitclaim deed is done in terms of just the conveyance of what the state is giving to the tribe. A warranty deed contains a guarantee that the grantor has certain rights in the estate. A quitclaim deed simply transfers the grantor's interests in the piece of real estate. I'm unfamiliar with the history of the property, but my understanding is the way that the state came to have title to the land would require some time and effort to prove certain things to provide a warranty deed, so this would expedite the matter.
Thank you. Committee, questions for the reviser? Any of you that have transferred land, you know, there is a difference between a warranty deed and a quitclaim deed. A quitclaim deed, my understanding is you just transfer whatever interest you have over to the individual with no warranty or no guarantee.
That's correct.
Thank you. Other questions of the reviser? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the quitclaim deed, can the state assume the land at any time? How does that work on the quitclaim deed?
Thank you. So that there's still that preservation easement in subsection C that the state would retain. That's not changed by the quitclaim deed. The only, as was stated, the difference between the warranty deed and the quitclaim deed is the state's making no promise along with the conveyance of the land. It's essentially just saying whatever interest the state has in the land, we are conveying to the tribe.
Thank you. Representative Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in response to the question of the representative, I think what you may be thinking of would be called a reversionary clause, where under certain conditions it might revert back to the state, but no, a quitclaim deed divests you of your interest, except for the provision the revisor mentioned.
Thank you for that explanation. Further discussion? Seeing none. Representative Epley? Oh, I need a second. I thought I had a second. Representative Arnberger. I had a second, I guess, to pass it out. Thank you. Now the amendment's been explained. You may move further discussion. You may move your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to thank you specifically for letting us have the hearing and then going ahead and working this today. It's important to my district, and I think we've got everything in alignment for this to go forward. So with that, I close. Thank you.
You move your amendment. Thank you.
I move my amendment.
As to the amendment offered by Representative Epley, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The bill has been amended. Further discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Representative Epley, wish to make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we pass out House Bill 2408 as amended to the floor.
Favorably? Thank you.
Favorably.
Do I have a second? Representative Arnberger has a second. Further discussion on the bill? Seeing none. All in favor of passing out House Bill 2408 as amended, say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Representative Epley, I will give you the first option of refusal. Do you want to carry this on the floor? Very well. It's a bill that you introduced, and it affects your district. You may carry the bill. Next item up will be House Bill 2025, protecting private property from unauthorized access by certain government officials and unauthorized surveillance. This is a bill that we previously passed out. I asked the speaker to re-refer it. There was an amendment that was supposed to be introduced prior to that, and it had a real problem as far as it included law enforcement. Law enforcement should not have been included. With that, I will ask for a motion. Representative Arnberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2025 favorably for passage.
Second. Second. Representative Penn. Discussion. I have an amendment. Matt, if you'll explain the amendment. And do we have copies on that amendment? We did not get copies on that. Matt, do you have the amendment?
I'm trying to locate it right now. I can explain what you want, but I'm trying to locate it right now.
Okay, take your time. I'll tell you what, Matt, let's just pass this bill without objection. We'll move to the others, and I would rather have the paper copies of the amendment. And I anticipate we may have to do a few things on Friday, other than do hearings. And we can bring it up then. Is that agreeable? Okay, we'll just pass it for right now. Representative Hauser says he's having copies of it made now, bringing it up. So without objection, we're just going to pass over and come back to it when the copies are here. Copies are here. I prefer having the copies for the members. I know most of the committees don't do that anymore, but you know, I like to be able to write on the amendments and highlight certain areas. So we're going to pass that. Representative Hauser said his office assistant is en route bringing up copies, so I think that will be helpful. Next up will be House Bill 2417, allowing clubs and drinking establishments to sell beer and cereal malt beverage for consumption off the licensed premises. We had a hearing on that. There were no opponents. With that, I would look for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2417 favorably for passage.
Second from Representative Reese. Discussion on this bill? Seeing none, Representative, you may redo your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2414 favorably for passage.
Thank you. You've heard the motion?
2417, I misspoke. 2417.
2417. You have heard the motion of Representative Arnberger to pass out House Bill 2417. I have a second by Representative Reese. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Passes out. Did you want your vote recorded? Representative Harberger indicates he would like his aye vote recorded. Just want to give you a quick update. Tomorrow, we'll start at 9 o'clock. We'll work as long as we can. Friday, we have a couple of hearings. They're going to be short hearings for those members. I was going to tell you you could attend my WebEx, but it may be that we'll be working a bill or two that day also. So to vote, you need to be here. If you're not going to be here, let me know, and I will have someone appointed to sit in your chair. With that, all right, committee, I told you that we would see this again. Please bring up House substitute for Senate substitute, Senate Bill 84. That up. I would entertain a motion to pass out House substitute 84.
Thank you, Mr. Sorry, I was having another conversation. Mr. Chair, I move that we pass out House substitute for Senate substitute 84 favorably for passage.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Representative Reese. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, maybe we can pass this out on a voice vote. I don't know. No discussion? You may renew your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House substitute, Senate substitute 84 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion of Representative Arnberger to pass it out favorably. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. It passes out. Representative Heiberger? No? Please. Thank you, folks. I have a Senate bill that they're going to offer an amendment on. It's Senate Bill 126, which is authorizing the sale of alcoholic liquor by a Class A club in special events under the club and drinking establishment. If you will recall, this bill, when we heard, it had to do with mostly Johnson County, where some of these legions, VFWs, American Legions, and it could also be Elks or service clubs, have these large rooms. And they would be utilized if this bill passes for weddings or parties. You know, back when we had, I think it was Class B or C liquor laws, you know, only those type of clubs, legions and stuff, could sell liquor. You had to be a member of a private club to go into those. So they built these large rooms to have gatherings and weddings and stuff, and now they're being vacant. Some of it had to do with COVID-19, some of it because of the existing statute that would not allow them to have non-members in their establishment for parties or for weddings and such. I thought we would take that up today, but there is an amendment that's going to be brought, and there is some conflict with the amendment. And I'm going to ask, is Debbie Beavers on the WebEx?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
It's pursuant to our conversation this morning in regards to this amendment, which in some ways takes some authority away from you, which always concerns me. But my understanding is you're going to be working with, I believe, Scott Snyder, who is requesting this amendment.
Yes, I will reach out to him and we'll try to come to some sound language.
Okay. I hate to give timelines, but, you know, Friday will be it for the committee to take unless we meet during the veto session, or possibly next week if I would get permission from the speaker to have a meeting. I'm not sure what our schedules are next week. But you're in agreement to meet with Mr. Snyder and try to work out some compromise language?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Then we will not do Senate Bill 126 today, but there is a very good possibility if we have time. I don't think we're going to have any time tomorrow, but Friday, this should not take very long, and I will try to squeeze it in between hearings. I'm going to change subject matter here now. We have amendments now. Okay, Matt, have you found the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that.
All right, we're back on House Bill 2505. I indicated 2025. This is not the amendment that I'm looking at. This is an amendment that would be on the floor of the House. It's not an amendment that we would do in committee. So can you bring that up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can.
Would you bring it up and explain it, please?
Happy to. Thank you. Everyone should see it now. So there are two sections to the bill in House Bill 2025. One concerns employees of the Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism. The second section pertains to other law enforcement agencies in the state. The amendment would just strike all of Section 2 so that the provisions of the bill would only apply to employees of the Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism.
Thank you. I think that was the intent of the bringer of the bill. Unfortunately, it did not get in when we worked the bill the first time. Questions to Matt on the amendment? Seeing no questions. I do. I have a second from Representative Arnberger. No further discussion to amendment? Yes, Representative Woodard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we heard some opposition testimony from law enforcement. Does this amendment satisfy that opposition?
I talked with Ed, who's in the back today, and he's got a thumbs up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're quite welcome. Very well. Representative Epley? Oh, boy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up further on that, it's striking the language, the amendment is striking the language about utility poles, so that addresses the specific concerns about whether the traffic engineers and law enforcement cameras on street lights or poles like that would not be in conflict with this law.
I will direct that question to the reviser.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, again, yes, the second section of the bill would be stricken, which did include that reference to the installation of tracking devices on utility poles. And so there'd just be section 1 pertaining to the employees of wildlife parks and tourism, and their surveillance on private property.
Thank you. Further? Yes, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe this might be the second amendment on this legislation. The first amendment had to deal with the noxious weed supervisors.
That is correct.
Okay, and so that was amended out.
That was amended out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then Representative Arnkamp had an amendment which gave the court the exceptions that are normally within the court jurisdiction, not pursued and such. No further discussion. I'll move my amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Further discussion on the bill. Representative Heiberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill as amended, as far as I can tell, just restates the law on search and seizure. I think it's completely unnecessary, and I'll be voting against.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none. Representative Berger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out House Bill 2025 as amended favorably for passage.
Thank you. Is there a second? Representative Reese. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. It passes out again. Change subjects again. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Representative Heiberger, no. Tomorrow, back on 2184, I've encouraged those bringers of the amendment to kind of talk to each other and see where there may be some common ground. And if there's some common ground, then, get together. I know some of the amendments are very similar, and try to work those differences out. I am not certain we will be able to complete that task tomorrow. I will be asking for the speaker to give us maybe a day next week when we're not busy, where we can meet, where we would not go into the chamber until 11. We would still have our normal time of 9 to 10:30. So that, I don't know if he'll do that, because he may want to go in at 8 every day, like we normally do. But if he does want to have a day that we would go in 11, I'll try to do that. But absent that, on Friday we have a couple of quick hearings. We'll probably take up Senate Bill 126. If they get the amendment resolved between the two parties, that'll be fine. If not, we'll do a short amendment on the Senate bill. We always like to correct Senate bills, and it will probably be an effective date or something, and we'll go forward. I thought this morning may take a little longer, but there's a question from Representative Smith, who I never get to see. I'm going to get a mirror up here where I can.
I thought about getting a long poker and just tap you in the back.
Pool cue, that's, yeah, that will work. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay. I wonder, and I hope I'm not out of order, has the chair considered a subcommittee regarding 2184.
No, what I have considered, if we can't get this worked out, is asking the speaker and writing a letter to the speaker asking for an interim during the summer. Let me finish that question first. All right, Representative Clayton.
Well, I was thinking about this. I had the pleasure of being on the interim with you when we discussed this. So, you know, I think that we have really had it. We had a very lively, very thorough discussion in that interim. It was a joint committee with senators. We don't usually have good committees with senators, but we did our best. But how many interims are we going to have? I would just as soon trust my chair and pass out a good bill.
And that would be my preference. It will just take time. And hopefully, the speakers have always been pretty kind and considerate. And because we've been working bills all along, normally, as you well know, the last 3 or 4 days we're in the chamber from 8 until 8 or 9 or sometimes past midnight. But since we've been having general orders every day, I think there will be some downtime next week. I'm hopeful. I think we all need some downtime. And I'm just looking for the 4 days off. I think it's 4 days before we come back the following week. But during that time, conference committees will be meeting, of course. Dr. Epley, you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the suggestion maybe to kind of nudge this forward, maybe a little faster, would be a subcommittee of the makers of the amendments. Because I think if we could sit down in a room and talk about, because there's a lot of overlap in these amendments, and I'd like to hear from the other makers of the amendments to hear their thoughts, because there's a lot of amendments. I read them all last night, and there's a lot of overlap, and so there's going to have to be some give and take, and that could be worked out in advance of the full committee meeting. And being very respectful of Coma Cora, well, I've learned about that the hard way. Yeah. So whatever your thoughts are, Mr. Chair, I'll defer to you. Thank you.
Well, I've appointed a few subcommittees over my tenure up here, and I've never found any of them to be productive. That's the reason I suggested that all the folks that have large amendments or small amendments get together on their time and try to resolve those issues, because I read those last night. I've read them for the last 2 nights, and there are many areas that they overlap, and there's got to be areas that can be compromised. A compromise is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, and sometimes it's just the wording of the amendments. So I know Representative Garber has a large amendment. I know Representative Carpenter has a large amendment. I know you have a couple of amendments, along with Representative Smith and Representative Wagner, and I may have missed someone. Representative Howell had an amendment. Maybe you should all just go to lunch and and then I guess we haven't passed sports book, but I'd say flip a coin and who wants to pay, but maybe we shouldn't do that. And have lunch together, and in a spirit of camaraderie, sit down and see where you can give a little and where you can't. And then those finer points that where you can't, then those are the issues we should take up. But I will leave that to you. But I do anticipate trying to, as Representative Clayton said, trug through these and see how much time it takes. But with that, as I've always said from the first meeting, I will not try to take your time when I don't need it. So yes, Representative Wagner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the freshmen and those of us who are new enough around here, I'm a little confused on what happened with the Senate substitute for House Bill 84, because I thought it was defeated on a 10-to-11 vote. And then how exactly does it come back to life? And it's upon, if you could explain that.
I will. It did not pass out favorably, but you always retain it in committee. Okay?
So even
to give you an example, the fire marshal bill that failed on the floor of the House, it is still under the line and can be brought back up. It's very good to live in Topeka this time of the year because nothing dies. But that's what happens. Because a bill fails to come out of committee does not kill the bill. Okay? All right. Thank you very much for that question. Again, as to the good of the committee, any questions about tomorrow? Seeing none, thank you for your hard work today, and we are adjourned.